All right, so we should be live right now. Let me double check that.
Dope.
We'll give everybody like a minute or so to get in first. Here we go. Yeah, it looks like we're live. Let me send you the live link so I can post that too.
Nice.
How's it going, bro?
It's been pretty good, man. I can't complain.
Good. Thank you for taking time to come onto the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm hyped. You guys are doing something great over here. I like heat.
Yeah, for sure. I like your content a lot too, bro.
I appreciate it, man.
There we go.
Appreciate that.
Let me send you the live link right now.
All right, bet.
Sent that, and let me make the announcement in the Heat Discord before we go ahead and get started.
All right.
Everyone. Share that on YouTube. Let's see how the stream is doing right now. So we got a couple people. How's everybody doing today, guys? What's up? What's up, Revision? Yep, today we have Excalibur Zero. Thank you for taking time to come on to the show, bro. How you doing today?
For sure, man. I appreciate it. I'm doing well, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So what we're gonna be doing today, we're gonna have an interview with Excalibur Zero. We're gonna be talking like all kinds of things, sync placement, selling beats, making content, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end, we're also be taking your guys' questions. So if you want to go ahead and drop any questions you got below for in the future, go ahead and comment that down below and we'll come back to it at the end. But yeah, I just wanted to get into it. I just want to know a little bit more about like your background and how you got into music and all that. So if you want to go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, so I feel like I've always been pretty drawn to music ever since I was a kid, man. But I essentially started getting into music when I was 14 or 15. I was playing a game called Diablo, and I met a friend on there. It was Diablo 2, and that friend ended up making beats, and he was showing me his beats, and he actually sent me FL Studio. So from there, I've been locked into FL Studio ever since. So been making beats since 15. I was in band and stuff like that. And then when I was 18 and 19, I needed to like find a direction of where to go as far as what to do with what I wanted to do actually after I graduated. So I ended up going to Full Sail University. And at the same time, I was like selling beats online, like on SoundClick and stuff like that. And then eventually BeatStars when it came out. Um, and then from there, I went to school for 3 years at Full Sail University down in Florida. After I graduated, they had a career development program. And from that career development program, I was able to start working for like a music library who basically hosts music for TV. I was always interested in, seeing people getting TV placements on their SoundClick banner and stuff like that. And I was trying to see how to get into that. So that actually ended up aligning with me. It was out here in LA where I'm at now. So they basically hired me on as an intern to learn the back end, like the insight in the game of like sync licenses and stuff like that. And from there, I was also able to compose for them. So that's kind of how I started. That's how I started, and that's where my story kind of comes from.
Nice. What was it like going to college for music?
It was pretty cool. I think that the way that Full Sail set up, it's very fast paced. So you're only getting like a month per class, and you have to do like every type of class, like all types of classes. But it was cool to be in actual studios and learning the equipment and gear. But I think that it was really fast paced. The one thing that I kind of missed out of about it was really networking. I was kind of like introverted into myself and in my shell. And I feel like what I could have took from that is networking with a lot of people because everybody there is for the entertainment. It doesn't matter if it's music or film or whatever. So I think that one thing I would go back and do is probably definitely network with more people and connect with more people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've always seen Full Sail, and they're kind of always been like advertised as for creatives, for anybody wanting to get into studio work and mixing and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of something that you would recommend other producers to like go down that road, going to Full Sail or another sort of college for music?
If they feel like it's necessary for their growth, yes, but I don't think it's necessary. Like I don't feel like I feel like I could have got to where I am now without Full Sail had I known the information. And as far as music wise, it's cool. I think that it's cool to learn the back end stuff, especially if you're getting into like engineering and stuff, more specifically for music. As far as production, when I was going there, there was like one or two production classes, but it wasn't anything too crazy. So I think it's not necessary, but if that's something that you're like trying to pursue, for me personally, like I was really getting like pressured by my family and stuff. Like I needed to figure out what I needed to do, like what I was doing after college when I turned 18.
Hmm.
So I think that going there kind of gave me that guidance, but it's not necessary. If you're a musician and you're getting into this, you can learn everything pretty much online for free. So that's my experience.
Yeah, and definitely the networking opportunities in college is because it's the same for regular college too, unless you're studying something crazy like medicine where you need that structured education. Like it's all just for networking, and that's like a lot of the biggest benefits. It's like the people you meet and the connections you make, you know?
100%, man. I agree with that.
Yeah, especially in the entertainment industry, it's like that times 100. So it just makes sense that that'd be a super valuable part. But
Definitely.
it's still good that you got a good result, even though you like said to yourself, like we're pretty introverted.
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely fortunate to where it led me, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So like when you first started making beats, like how were you doing it? Like what software were you using and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was using FL Studio and I was terrible, man. Like I didn't know anything about arrangement. I didn't know anything about how to make a beat. I was just clicking buttons, but I was really obsessed with it. I was doing it every day, and like I would have like people come over and try to make beats with them, and I'll have like 64 bar verses and stuff like that. And it took a lot of like patience and learning to really get the hang of it. But I use FL Studio. I dabbled a little bit with Reason, and then in college they gave you a free copy of Logic, so I tried that out. But I preferred FL Studio, and then Pro
Mm,
Tools as well. You learn Pro Tools when I was in college too. But yeah, I usually FL Studio still to this day.
yeah, nice. Sorry if you can hear my cat in the background.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, but yeah, I started with Logic too. That was my first DAW.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
and then I was using Logic for a couple years, and then I switched to Ableton,
Oh, nice.
and
Yeah.
that's where I've been at too. But
Ableton's dope.
I did learn FL. Like I bought it a couple years ago when it was on sale during the holidays because like I wanted to be able to collaborate with people since everybody uses FL,
Mhm.
and I had no idea how to use it. I didn't want to be like in a situation where I'm in a room trying to make a beat and I can't even like place a note down.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, but that's cool. So yeah, one of the big things I want to talk about was like sync placements and licensing and all that. But for people who like are unaware and have never heard the term sync licensing or anything like that, could you kind of give like a brief rundown of the whole premise of it?
Yeah, I think what as producers and beat makers, when I was like getting into the game, I feel like sync licensing was kind of like just this big industry term. Um, but to simplify what sync licensing is, it's basically music used for any visual media. And if you think about it, all entertainment uses music in some sort. So it could be an ad on your phone, it could be the music played in a video game, it could be a streamer that you're watching that's playing whatever game that you're watching, a TV show, movies, even now virtual reality that we're getting into, like the Oculus and stuff like that, and augmented reality. Um, but basically, music for sync licensing is just the music used for any visual media that you see, so any video, and they need a license to be able to use that music. The people who are making the companies who have the budgets to make these projects for your games and your films and stuff like that. So they pay people to be able to use the license to the copyright holder. So that would be the producer making the beat, or if an artist bought an exclusive track, that would also be the artist. So that's basically the basic terms of what sync licensing is.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And how does payments and the money work when it comes to those kinds of placements? Because it's
That's
a
a good
lot different than selling beats and getting a placement with a rapper, you know?
Right. I like to actually kind of compare it to selling a beat to a rapper. So if you're selling a beat to a rapper, they lease that beat. That's an upfront fee that you're getting. They're giving you, let's say, $50 for them to be able to use that beat. That's one type of payment that you get for sync licensing, but the budget's a lot bigger. They have big budgets to be able to say, we need tracks like this and this style. We're paying $10,000, $20,000 dispersed evenly within these tracks. So that would be one way to get paid is through upfront fees, similar to how a lease is. And then another way would be the back end, so the royalties, which is really good for broadcasting, especially on TV, films, and some games as well. And you collect a good amount of money from the back end too, as well. So every time that track is broadcasted on that TV show, or every time that movie is played live, you're getting paid for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And when it comes to like, do those kinds of payments for those royalties, is it kind of scheduled in the way as regular payments are, how they kind of pay out like 4 times a year?
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. You get paid
Okay.
quarterly, so you get paid through your performing rights organization, either BMI, ASCAP, or if you're international, you can just Google performing rights organization and then your name of your country.
Yeah. That sounds like I can like see a lot of producers like kind of hearing all that and learning about the PROs and signing up for all that stuff and being confused and overwhelmed. Like, is it really something that should be like that overwhelming, or is it kind of simple once you kind of get the hang of it and start like getting into the game like that?
It's actually pretty simple, man. Like you can go on BMI's website today if you're not signed up, and you can sign up for free. They approve your application within a couple of weeks, and it takes maybe 10 minutes. I think I made like a 5 minute video on YouTube to show you step by step, but it's pretty easy. It's simple as just entering your name and your information, the country you're in, just some information for like tax reasons. That way, they know to give you a form when you're paid out and stuff like that.
Yeah. Nice. That's dope. So I know you said that you kind of like had the opportunity after going through Full Sail to work with the company that you got the internship with. Was that your first way like getting into sync licensing, or were you kind of already like experimenting with it before that?
No, that was definitely my first experience with sync licensing. Like I said before, I got a internship to work with the music licensing company. It's basically a music library. They're just basically a place that catalogs different music from producers or artists like me and you. They accept that music and they pitch that music out for you to different companies that are working on different TV shows, films, ads, whatever type of projects they may have. So that's pretty much my introduction into sync licensing, was working for that music library, doing a lot of the back end stuff, seeing how the systems work and how people like the whole system from top to bottom, how it works from us sitting in our music all the way to it getting used and getting approved and the people higher up approving the actual show or project. So it definitely gave me a lot of insight as far as how this system works, especially coming from like a beat selling background. I came from beat selling. I wasn't able to consistently sell beats. I was doing this at the same time. Noticed that this was starting to work, and I was working with a lot of people who are already in the industry, getting like number one hits and stuff like that. So I was starting to see that this is like a very underutilized lane for musicians, period, especially independent. There's so much opportunity and a way to actually build a career off of with this lane.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. Like being able to work that kind of job and see the whole process from the back end. I can imagine you must have learned so much doing that.
For sure. Definitely fortunate for that experience.
Yeah, but I know you said that you sold beats too. Like, aside from sync and doing that, like what other kind of ventures have you had to try and monetize your creativity and music making?
Yeah, so beat selling on SoundClick and YouTube, or BeatStars and stuff like that. And then another thing I did after I became full time from sync licensing, so I ended up quitting that job I said I was working for, the music library in 2020 during
Mhm.
COVID, like in May. And then from there, I was able to start working with like plugin companies. So like Native Instruments, let's say, they create contact banks, right? When they create a new contact bank, they want to demo it to get more appeal to that product. So what they'll do is they'll pay people to make those beats, and it's basically the sound design team. So you reach out to the sound design team who works for a company. It could be Slate Digital, whoever. They have those demos that need to be created, so they give you that free VST bank. Sometimes they'll give you the whole plugin for free. I got the plugin actually for free, which is pretty cool. But they gave me the bank, and then they pay me a fee, and it's not too crazy. It's like the price of how much you would probably sell an exclusive beat. Um, but then you're working on like multiple ones. So that was another lane that I got into that actually really helped me go full time as well.
Yeah, that sounds like almost like a dream producer job in a way.
Just getting
Like,
free plugins and making beats
yeah,
for money. Yeah,
yeah, demoing new stuff and all that. Like that sounds super sick.
it's
But
dope.
yeah, no, that's super cool. Yeah, you said that it's sync itself is pretty underutilized, and we were talking about this before, but I've kind of noticed sync content like becoming a little bit more and more talked about within the
For
last
sure.
couple years because I've been seeing you obviously and some other dudes that are making some really cool videos about it. But just a few years ago, barely anybody was talking about sync, and if they were talking about the rock stuff, the not
Yeah,
hip hop kind of stuff.
yeah,
So
for
I feel
sure.
like when people think of sync, they think of the kind of maybe stuff that they're hearing in television and stuff, where it's like it's a hip hop beat, but it was kind of you could tell it wasn't made by like a trap producer, somebody like in FL Studio like 2023 cooking up like that kind of producer stuff. So do you think that there's a really good opportunity for like producers with a type beat channel to kind of take those instrumentals and flip it in a way to try and get it onto television or movies and other opportunities like that?
Oh, for sure. I think you explained that perfectly. There's like what I noticed when I was in the game is that there was people who were not making the style of genre they're comfortable with, like let's say like you said, a rock producer making these hip hop beats, and I think that created this stigma of like the music needs to be corny and stuff for television specifically, right? And that's or commercials or whatever. But when I was in the game, I was just realizing there's so much. I was getting so much opportunity just because I made hip hop, and like that's my style, and they needed that, and it's becoming more popular, especially now within the entertainment industry. And I think that if you're a producer and you're really good at making your niche, if you can understand the context of how your music is getting used, there's so much opportunity for you. So I like to say that music for television specifically is about 1 to 2 years behind. So everything that you're hearing now on the radio is probably going to be broadcasted on TV 1 to 2 years from now. So like one example I really capitalized on was making drill type beats. Drill type beats were starting to become popular for the producer industry, on the radio and stuff like that as well, and there was not anything like that within sync really. So what I did was I understood the context of how my music could get used. So let's say if I wanted to make a track that sounded like comical for like a funny scene for TV shows, there's always like a comedy. Usually you'll hear like pizzicato strings or something like that. That's how you can relate comedy to. We're supposed to be made for like an awkward or funny moment. I would make a drill beat using elements from drill and then just putting like comedic elements on it, very plucky and staccato stuff on that. And then I will send it out and pitch it out. And I made like an album of 10 tracks like that. And it still gets used to this day. And it's starting to get picked up more because it's 1 or 2 years behind. So you can really capitalize on the style of music that you're making, niche it down, just understand the context. And you can do that easily by watching TV with your girl. Next time your girl's watching reality TV, Real Housewives or whatever, listen to the type of music. And you're like, okay, I can make a track like that, but make it sound more modern. That's how you really capitalize in this game. Another example, real quick, of that is I'm from Virginia. I'm from where DC is, very close to DC. There's a specific style of music there that if you're from DC, it's called go-go. Go-go music is pretty popular in that area, but if you're outside of that area, you might not know it. There's a show called Real Housewives of Potomac. They needed music that's in the go-go style because it's based out of DC. So I was able to. The library hit me up. They knew I was from that area. They're like, "Hey, are you able to make go-go music?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll try to make some stuff." I made like 20 tracks for them, and those tracks still get placed to this day just because the opportunity aligned because I knew how to make that style. Like I said, if you can understand the context of your music, there's endless amounts of opportunity. And now, yeah, there's more people talking about it, and people may be like, "Oh, well, what if it's saturated now?" There's 80 to 120 tracks used on one episode of TV, reality TV specifically, that you're not even noticing. So that's just one episode. If you think about the season of a show, there's so much opportunity there. There's thousands of tracks just for one TV show. And we see that content is rising. So if you just think about any lane that you really want to get into, commercials, movies, ads, TV, doesn't matter. There's definitely a place for producers to start taking over.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of mind blowing when you put it in that perspective. Like I think you said that in one of your videos that I'd seen, well, like that many TV shows need that many pieces of music, like that's a crazy amount.
For sure, definitely.
So it definitely sounds like for producers making type beats like in more niche genres and more like underground type of sounds, like it sounds like they have a pretty good opportunity to be able to break through with a new sound that the other producers on that library's roster like probably haven't even heard of or ever tried making,
Yeah,
right?
definitely. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. And yeah, so we've been talking about like the opportunities with sync and how it works, but what is and I know you probably made plenty of video about this before, but what is it like when you first want to get into sync and you want to try and get placements? Like what is the steps you got to take as a producer?
So I mentioned before that I worked for a music library. Music library is just a large catalog that just hosts music, like I said earlier, and pitches it out to these different companies. The easiest way for you to get in is to work with the music library. If you're a producer, if you're an artist, music library is also a good route, or a Seek agency if you're an artist. The easiest way is to start looking these libraries up. Some people will post like Google Music libraries, but if you that that could be a little bit saturated because a lot of people are going to be sending to those first 46 lists of libraries that you see on there. But if you look up like music library directories, there's going to be a list of it. You can look up the different lists that people put together, like me or any other producer or person who's experienced in this lane of different libraries they found, and you can pitch it to those sites. So they'll have a website listed. You can see if they have a submission form or if they have an email, and you would send it directly to that submission form or email. And I like to usually say, check out their site a little bit, get to know who they are a little bit, see if they have a catalog already listed on their website where you can check out their music. If they have, music in your style, like I made this example earlier, if you make hip hop, but they don't have drill music and you can make drill music, that's where your opportunity lies. Send them a brief email or fill out their submission form, however their process is, and then they'll contact you. If you don't hear back, follow up one time. If you don't hear back from them, try the next one. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different libraries out there because of all the different projects that people have got going on, that there's definitely opportunity out there for you. So that's the easiest way to get started.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sounds it sounds like a different process than what a lot of producers are used to, and as far as like chasing placements and making connections in that way.
Yeah.
It kind of seems it's a little more professional way where it's almost like applying for a job. Like if you think about it,
Yeah, it's a perfect way to put it. Yeah,
like
exactly.
yeah, it sounds way more like to me, like I've been selling beats for years and working with artists and all that. So it's like I'm sure you know how unprofessional and kind of like it's very like handshake agreements and
Mhm.
more personable kind of stuff. So it's really refreshing to see like a more professional side of the industry where you can kind of like come in, apply, and speak more professional and have that kind of demeanor with you.
100%. That's a perfect way of putting it. You're treating yourself like a business, working with another business. Their job is to supply their client. Your job is to supply them. So that's a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah, no, so that sounds like a great avenue for like a lot of producers to kind of get into, if they're
100%.
tired of dealing with rappers stealing their beats and not paying and content ID issues.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So aside from all the cool things we talked about, like why else should producers like think about trying to pursue these sync placements? What's in it for them as far as like the money and stability or whatever else?
I think that it's a great way to build credibility. Like, I've definitely gained so much more connections with different people just off the fact that I do sync placements or even talk about sync placements in general. It definitely landed a lot more opportunities. Producers who are already in the game who work with major artists, whenever they need loops, they hit me up and I give them opportunities whenever I can, as far as sync licensing or put them in the right direction or lead them to the right people. So I feel like it's definitely a way to build your credibility, to build your network, to get a little bit of credits under your name, to start pitching out to more places that you want to ultimately go with your music career. It's a great way to leverage your music career. I feel like this is one of the most like step-by-step blueprint ways you can really build a career off your music. I worked at jobs that I hated. Every single day I would go in, I would just think about going home and making music. I would show up late because I was up all night making music. This I tried so hard with the beat selling stuff that I was really not able to get it. We didn't have heat before. Like I didn't know about marketing. I didn't know about, all that stuff that you guys show. I didn't have that. That wasn't, shown to me back in the day when I was selling beats. But then
Yeah.
when I was doing the sync license stuff, when I got introduced, I was still kind of like tugging and pulling, trying to do the beat selling game and this. But this was working out so much more for me that it was starting to build and build and build and build to a point where I'm like, this is a no brainer for me. Like this changed my life. I was trying to like, I always had the stigma like this stuff's supposed to be corny or this stuff's supposed to be like, just something you do on the side. But no, people are building careers out of this, and it can change your life. Honestly, like I'm not just sitting here just saying it just to pull your leg. If you really learn this game and put the steps into it and really put your time in, like this is stuff that you got to think about your career when you're older and you're like 50 or 60, and you're still gonna love music. It doesn't matter. You're still gonna be a kid loving music. This is something that you can do to sustain the rest of your life. I can put my now like the my split of my percentage of my checks under my daughter's name for the future if she ever needs money. Every time I get a placement now, like that, and every time it re-airs, a TV show re-airs or anything like that, it gets used, or if Netflix picks it up and that show starts going popular, let's say like Breaking Bad, you're gonna get paid for that. And I think that's a couple of reasons why if you're a musician, this is a no-brainer. That's why I've been like trying to really reach out and show people like this is a way, man. This is life changing for real.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And it's definitely super dope to hear like your perspective on it and to share what kind of success is possible when you just kind of pursue that.
For sure, 100%. It's definitely
Yeah.
attainable for sure for anybody out there. Just got to put the work in.
Yeah, for sure. No, you're talking about like back in the day before heat and all that, it was like the dark ages of producing when you're scouring Reddit posts with one upvote from 3 years ago, just trying to dig for information.
Perfectly said. Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of our audience like has been there too. Like, at times just searching, scouring the web, and I remember how it was back in the day too. Like
100%.
when the YouTube producers first came up, it's like you either had to be like reading the manual or just figure it out on your own because there wasn't no YouTube videos about it.
It was like a strike of luck. I feel like I remember in 2013 I was posting type beats on YouTube, and I didn't know that it was like a thing. I didn't know that type beats were about to blow up, and I was getting sales, and I didn't understand why. I didn't even know that I was getting my traffic from YouTube. I was just putting my beats on YouTube and SoundClick, and like I definitely missed out on the opportunity because nobody was teaching that stuff. So yeah, I feel like the research or the information is way more out there today of how to actually do it, but before it was a struggle.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great that, obviously people like you and the rest of the Heat team that people make that kind of content to, spread the awareness of that this kind of stuff is possible.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. So say a producer wants to get into trying to pursue some sync placements. Let's say they've been producing for a while, maybe got some placements already. And is there a way for them to like kind of take that experience of been selling beats, been in the game for a while, and leveraging the placements they got as far as trying to get future sync placements, or is it kind of like everybody at an even playing field?
You could definitely leverage it if you have that. Like if you've have placements before with one or two artists, pitch that when you're trying to get accepted to a music library or work with a company who accepts, music. That definitely can help you, but you don't need any credentials. You don't need any following. You don't need to be posting on social media. You could be a homie just chilling in his bedroom making beats every day with no social proof at all and submit to sync licensing, get opportunity as long as your music aligns with what they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, what other ways would you kind of differentiate yourself when you're pitching to these libraries?
I think what I mentioned earlier is definitely going to help you as far as understanding the context of your music. You can stand out just by being you and your style, but you got to understand that music you're making for artists is different than music you're making for TV shows or movies or films. You're making music for dialogue as opposed to somebody singing and rapping on it. So you need to leave space for that dialogue. If you have crazy like distracting sounds and you're just trying to flex too much with your beat, it's going to be the forefront. It's going to be distracting. They're not going to want to use it. They need that room for that dialogue. So just understand that how your music can be used in the context, understand arrangement. That's really going to help you set yourself apart. And then just be you, be your style, and just use it in the way where it's able to be placed in these movies, able to be placed in the with sync. Or another way is working with artists. Work directly with these artists that you're already working with. Pitch it out to sync agencies. They'll send you, you sit in that music to the sync agency. You guys both own the music. There's a term called one stop, which basically means it's cleared. That music is cleared. That means you have that music, you own that music. I recommend not using royalty-free loops and stuff like that, just because it can come up in content ID, and they're starting to strike down on that a little bit with sync licensing. But work with that artist, make that be directly for them. That track is one stop because you and that artist own that track. Pitch it out to sync agencies. Artists right now are so needed with sync licensing. That's a great way to get started too. If you're having trouble finding your lane, just working with music libraries, start pitching it out together as a team, you and the artist, and then you guys are going to collect a good bag. Like these places are paying like thousands, if not $10,000s of dollars. I just scrolled on my TikTok right before we got on this call, and this guy was sharing how he just got a $50,000 placement for a track he made like 3 years ago. So there's a lot of opportunity there. You just got to understand the context of how your music is used.
Yeah, no, that's all crazy. And you've been dropping so many gems already. I want to get into a few more questions, but I just want to let the audience to know that we're gonna be interviewing I'm gonna be interviewing you for a little bit longer, and then we're gonna do kind of a Q&A. So
For
if
sure.
anybody's got any questions for Excalibur Zero right now, go ahead and start leaving them in the comments. But yeah, you brought up a couple points like as far as producing for television versus for like just regular songs and all that, like what kind of big tips do you have for arranging and structuring your beats so it's more favorable for a television setting?
So the way that I've been teaching for a while has been like a hook section. Like you're getting your intro in, you want to keep it short, no longer than 8 seconds. Get that intro in really quick. You don't need a 30-second intro. Just get that intro in really quick and then have like a hook section. It could be 4 to 8 bars, but just like your hook section, not everything needs to be in there, but just a good amount of the main melodies to catch the attention. Then immediately you want to get into the B section on the verse. You want to keep it very stripped down, maybe like an 808 with a minor melody or something with like light percussion, and then build on it just a little bit, and then finally get into that last hook. So you have like an 8 bar hook, you have a little 8 bar verse, and then you have that final hook, and then you want to build a little bit of drive into it. So I like to add like shakers or something to really drive into the ending, which is a sting. You need a sting at the end of your tracks for all sync licensing, more specifically too for TV shows. But sync licensing, I highly recommend you having a sting. If you're not familiar with the sting is, it's basically that little one shot hit that you hear at the end of your track. Like just imagine a one shot of your main melody layered with like a kick or a crash, like a boom that hits at the end of your track. Every track needs that. So that's kind of the arrangement that I like to go with. And you can experiment with it. You can do shorter hooks, get longer verses, do a little bridge or whatever you want to do. But that's like my main meat potatoes is how I like to arrange it. And if you're making instrumentals for TV shows, they don't need to be long. It could be a minute and a half to 2 minutes. You don't need to make a whole full song. Just keep it a minute and a half, 2 minutes. If you're an artist, 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes is usually the flow that I like to go with. But that's like the way that you can pretty much get your tracks structured out. Just make sure you have a sting, short intro, leave room for dialogue. That's the main focus there.
Yeah, for sure. And you also have a great video pretty much explaining all that as well, as far as like arranging and making beats for television specifically.
Yeah,
And that's where I learned what the sting was. I never heard about that until I saw that
for sure.
video.
That's the yeah for
But
sure.
yeah. But obviously, I'm sure like if you watch television and listen to the music that they've got going on, you could hear that plenty of times an episode. But if you're just making beats, you're like a sting, what?
Yeah, for
Why
sure.
would I do that? But that's definitely interesting to like kind of see how that crosses different things. But yeah, and also Troy doesn't get paid to talk nice about us. Nah, for sure. I'm just saying things how they are. But yeah, when you're talking about earlier, as far as like chasing sync license or sync placements with an artist, like is that a different process as far as pitching? Like I'm guessing like a full song versus just an instrumental. Do you have to like do it to the same libraries, or is it have to be shown in a certain type of way?
You could do the same library, or you can do what I said, seek agencies. There's a little bit more like wiggle room when you're working with artists because the demand for artists is pretty high. There's not a lot of great artists out there. I've worked with people who literally have recorded on their iPhone and made a song out of it and tried to pitch the track. And I had to mix it myself. They like recorded all on GarageBand from their phone, and it sounded terrible. There's like a lot of back end, noise and stuff like that. And that's just an example. Like of like the quality is not really there. So that's just one lane that you could take. But working with seek agencies and music libraries is going to be one of the easiest ways if you really want to start getting into working with artists and getting to the libraries. Or you can go on a Seek agency's website. You can just type in Seek agency on Google or whatever. Go on their website, look at the artists they have, reach out to them, find them on social media, reach out to them and say, hey, I've produced instrumentals. I really like your music. I see you're working with this company. Would love to create some stuff for you to pitch it out for sync placements. That's another way that you can kind of build that relationship there too as well.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of gems right there. Um, as far as those songs, is there certain like criteria that they keep in mind for that, like censorship or
Mm.
arrangement, anything like that?
That's a really good question. So if you're making it for like cable television, where it's going to be broadcasted on TV, like cable TV, then there is a little bit more of a criteria you need to meet because of the FCC. Like you don't want to cuss and say certain curse words and stuff like that. So if you do curse or whatever, you want to make sure you have a clean version of that track. But as you lean more into stuff that's streaming, like Netflix, HBO, you see there's a little bit more leniency with that stuff. So it's not as like frowned upon if you do cuss and stuff. Just make sure you have a clean version. As far as arrangement, it's not too different as far as your songwriting arrangement already. If you're an artist or if you're a producer making for an artist, just keep those intros short. That's like my main thing. Have that catchy hook and keep it relatable. These you're making music for TV. Those TV shows and films and stuff are trying to target an audience. So your let's say trap beat is not going to fit in a track made for your grandma like favorite movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it needs to fit a certain feeling. And I like to say or suggest lyrical themes. There's certain lyrical themes you're going to hear all over TV. Let's say if you're a female empowerment, motivation, swagger, anything where you can relate to. If you're in the gym and you hear a line that you can kind of relate to. That's pretty general, not too specific. Like, hey, you, the guy with the glasses wearing a black hat and the headphones on. Like, nah, not that specific. Just anybody who's relatable to you on the day to day basis. Um, that's really how you kind of want to approach the music when you're making it for if you're an artist or if you're working with an artist.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I'm assuming, like, because we got a question here asking about rearranging songs with the artist. So structure-wise, just songs with the artist that follow certain censorship if it is for cable, but it's just pretty typical, right?
For the structure, yeah, you can. I mean, you just want to keep, like I said, the intro short, have a strong hook. Your verse, it could be however long. Like I said, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes is perfectly fine for a full song. If you're working with if you're an artist, the arrangement is not going to be too different as an artist if you're working on your regular music already. And they are kind of leaning towards people who are making music that doesn't specifically even need to sound like it's made for sync licensing. They actually want more nurtured artists who aren't in their own lane. But just like I said, keep it broad and pretty relatable, and you'll do fine.
For sure. No, I think that's definitely a gem. I've never heard that kind of information or anything, and that's definitely gonna be useful for a lot of artists out there. I want to start getting into everybody's questions soon. If y'all got some more questions for Excalibur Zero, start dropping them. We had just touched on Drew's right now about the arrangement for songs with artists. So let's go
Okay.
ahead and go to Seppi Beats. He asks, if there are almost no producers and songs for a specific genre, is it a good opportunity for me or not, as far as like pursuing sync placements?
Uh, if he says there's no specific genre, like if he makes stuff that's more experimental, if that's what he's.
Or I kind of understand it more as in kind of an unsaturated niche.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a perfect way to get your foot in the door, is being the person who's a go to for that sound. If you make rage type beats and you don't hear rage type beats in that library, every time that library is going to be requested, rage type beats are going to go to you. Another example is right now, what's really popular for a lot of briefs. Briefs are basically descriptions of the music that the TV show or movie needs. Right now, one of the most popular inspired by type of tracks they need is a show from White Lotus that's on HBO Max. They like the percussive elements from that. They like the vocal chops from that. A lot of different shows are requesting styles for that, like that music. Or Harry Styles is another one. As it was, that song is super popular. They like music like that in that style. That's becoming another popular request. So if you can understand that, like you could be that person that go to, they're gonna go to you for that sound. Every time they get requested for that, they're gonna use those tracks you sent in, and if your track's in a library, it's not going to just most of the time only get used for one show. It could live on multiple shows. It's not limited to one thing. It lives in a library, so it's collected and used by whoever needs to check it out.
For sure, yeah. Um, you said like I know you talking about like some libraries will give you briefs, like if you're for a certain if you need a certain vibe or something like that, or like if it was like the Harry Styles one, for producers that want to kind of like be ahead of the curve and do something that's gonna be like needed but may not be like on the forefront. Like, what is some good ways to kind of keep an eye on what's trending and like what kind of how you can be ahead of the curve when using these trending sounds, you know?
I think that just going out there and doing your research, like listen to different shows, listen to different music on the radio, see what's popular, see what people on TikTok are using the most on their sounds that they're pretty much syncing to their own video on TikTok. Like these TikTok creators are syncing their own like different music, their own videos to different music. So see what's trending and try to make sounds that sound like that. If it's in your style, don't go outside of what you don't like making. Don't think you just need to make this style because it's popular. Stay within your nature as a creative and really lean into that. But I think that's one way to stay ahead of the game. I like to look at forums. I like to and if a brief's not giving me stuff, I like to look at different like sync licensing forums that you can find them on online. I like to just stay ahead of the game by just doing my own research, listening to music, watching the shows. If you're in the car, you don't want to listen to music, play a TV show or something, listen to the music that's going on that's current. Like put it in your phone and just ride around listening to it. You don't have to watch it, but then just understand, oh, these type of sounds are being used the most. I hear a lot of brass sounds being used, or I hear a lot of percussive elements being used, or there's not that many modern tracks. I think I can kind of lean into that and take that as an opportunity. Just study the game all around. Think of everything as your own landscape to kind of build yourself an opportunity for as far as where music is being used. And then that's how you can really take over.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's some gems for sure. Yimwave
The homie.
says, "Oh, when you get a placement, how do companies go about payment?"
So that's a great question. What's up, YM? That's a homie. Um, there's two type of ways which I mentioned earlier, the upfront or the royalties. So this is how it basically goes. When you're first signing with the music library, they're gonna like give you a contract. You're signing a contract based off an agreement. It could be a percentage. There's gonna be a writer's percentage and a publishing percentage. So 100% of the writers, 100% of the publishing. Usually with the library, they're going to be taking some part of that. So you work off that agreement. You send them your PRO information, which could be BMI, ASCAP, whatever performing rights organization. That's how you're going to collect your royalty. So every time it's used, it's broadcasted, it shows up for BMI or ASCAP. They have like basically these sheets that are called Q sheets that are processed every time. I feel like I'm over explaining a little bit, but every time that track's getting placed, it's getting marked. They're processing that for you to get paid on that back end through the royalties. Another way is through upfront fees. So sometimes projects for TV shows or movies or films, they have a budget. Let's say that budget is $20,000. They can't pay a major artist $20,000. They're gonna look at them like they're silly. Like those major artists like Adele and stuff want $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. They can't afford that. They only have a $10,000 budget, so they're reaching out to these libraries to use their music with that budget. It's usually dispersed evenly. So let's say they only want 10 tracks of that $10,000. Each person who gets placed is getting 1,000. So they'll collect that upfront fee. Basically, they do an agreement. So they'll get a check and then they'll send you a percentage of that check. Usually they'll wire it to you through your bank. Maybe they'll Venmo it to you, whatever their process may be. That's usually how you're going to get paid from that. So those are the two type of ways: upfront or the back end.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's really good that you went into more detail because I think a lot of producers are very uneducated about how payouts work in general, especially when you start working with labels and like music libraries where they got the stuff together and they do it legit.
100%. Yeah, these companies like who have these budgets don't want to get sued for using a track they didn't have permission to. So you don't have to worry about your beats getting stolen or like not getting paid. They make sure they take care of you. It's legitimate business that they're doing. They want to keep their business as clean as possible without getting into any issues. So that stuff is usually worked out really well.
Yeah, for sure. And you had brought up a point that I had thought about earlier too, as far as like when you sign on to a library. What does that look like? Is that like a producer signing a deal with a label, or is that different? Like, is it non-exclusive? How does that work?
That's a really good question. There's two different types of way. There's non-exclusive and exclusive. When it's exclusive, it just basically means anything you submit to that music library, they have full access to. They can pitch it out to anything they want. They have the rights to do that as well. But it doesn't mean they own your own catalog. Only the music you're submitting to them is what's going to get used. So if you have music on the side that you're selling for artists that you want as your own project or you want to put on your Spotify, that's fine. That's your separate stuff. But then you have your stuff that you can submit directly to a music library, and then they'll have access to that. So that process is pretty much going to look like this. If it's non-exclusive, you can send your music anywhere, so it doesn't really matter as long as it's non-exclusive. But you reach out to that music library, you reach out to them either through that email or submission form. They'll come back and reach out to you if they like your music or if they need your style of music. They'll tell you if you're approved or denied. They want to either set up a call or maybe move forward with more examples or even a contract. They'll say, we like your music. We have a room for you. We'd love to have you on board. They'll send you a contract. That contract will have, some terms and stuff like that. You can use an entertainment lawyer if you need to. If not, there's like pretty basic information on there as far as like the terms, how long the track's going to be used and stuff like that. That is a lot more intricate, but that's usually how that process works. They're going to send you a contract, and then from there, they're going to start working with you. They're going to say, hey, we need 10 more songs in this style. We need 10 songs in this style. Or they'll say, hey, we have this music brief for this TV show or film. Can you make music created based off this brief or this description? Inspired by these sounds. This is how long we want it. This is the instrumentation we don't want to use. That's kind of how that brief will look. That's the process of how it goes.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Um, Cody Bell Productions has a question. He says, if I have to submit beats directly, how can I protect my music from?
You froze there for a second. Hello? It's frozen for a sec. Oh, he's frozen, right? I'm not frozen, am I? It looks like he's frozen on here. Oh, okay. I can answer this question while he's frozen. But he said, if I have to submit beats directly, how can I protect my music? You don't want to send tags. Don't ever send tags when you're sending your music out for sync placements. And to protect your music is through that contract. The contract you sign protects you. They're not going to be, they're not going to be stealing your music. If they do, you can use a plugin or a tool called tunesat.com, and you can see every time your track is placed, it'll show up live for TV shows specifically. TuneSat.com is free for your first 50 tracks. I only use the free version. Every time I have new tracks I want to add, I'll delete some tracks and add new tracks. But that's how you can kind of track how the track's being used. But yeah, you're never really going to have to worry about your music being stolen. I've never had an instance where, in working with the music library or working directly for myself, where I've ever seen anybody get their music stolen. You got to make sure it's clear. Oh, I see you back now.
Okay. Did the stream cut or anything?
It cut to just me.
Okay.
It's still on right now.
That's good. I didn't want it to get taken down. Just
Yeah,
because I cut out. It looks like it just cut me out though, so that's cool. I gotta figure that out. I should have really fast internet, so I don't know why I've been having those connection issues.
that's
But
weird.
yeah, yeah, it looks like everything's good now. So you were talking about the last question?
Oh yeah, I already answered it. Basically,
Okay.
what I was saying about how you can protect your music from getting stolen is you can use it. You're not really gonna get your music stolen with sync. You never want to send tags or anything like that. Definitely never want to send tags with your music when you're pitching it. But that contract's going to protect you, and then the tools that you can use to make sure that to see if your track's even used is like tunesat.com. It's a free site. It'll track your placement live directly. So if I put my music on there today and tomorrow my music's used on a TV show, it's going to show a clip of that track, well, the audio version of that track. So a clip from that show, and then you can see when it's placed and how long it's placed and stuff like that, and what network, what TV show it's called.
All right, for sure. No, that's good. We got here one from Carl. You killed it. What's good, bro? It says, "Is reaching out directly to supervisors a good strategy for sync?"
You could. It's a little bit harder. I feel like when you work with the music supervisors, that process is going to look a lot different because you need to be on point. You need to make sure that all your tracks are clear. There's no royalty-free loops. Everything is one stop, like that term I mentioned earlier. You need to make sure that that you're building that connection, you're nurturing it, because they have a lot of different responsibilities. Usually, they're not working on only one show, and they usually don't onboard new producers or new random unsolicited music. They do, however, work with more artists if it's unsolicited, but it's like handful. It's like here and there. So if you want to work with music supervisors directly, it's cool, but you're not going to get as much opportunity, I feel like, as you would as opposed to a music library. Yeah, you're getting a less cut as opposed to working directly with a music supervisor, but the opportunity is not going to be as much because music libraries are working not just with one music supervisors, but multiple companies and supervisors and stuff. So it's a lane you could take, especially if you're working with artists. But I usually think that it's better and more efficient to work with music libraries or seek agencies.
All right, for sure. And then we got a question here from GSL Lay. It says, "How long is music generally kept in a library before a refresh is carried out and then it gets replaced by new music?"
That's a really good question, actually. So from when I was working with my experience with the music library, we would get catalog drops every quarter and we would just keep adding new music throughout that year. But all that music was still in there. So I have music that's like 6 or 7, years old that is still within that music library that's being pitched out. But they're always like adding more and more. But the cool thing is that I feel like not many people talk about this or know about this. When your music is used within a library, right? They have a library, let's say, of 30,000 songs dispersed evenly within different genres. They're sending that music out either through a link online, like an online player, like a beat player or something like that, or they're sending a hard drive, a physical hard drive to that company so they have it ingested into their system and they can just use their music for whatever shows they have. So if it's ingested into that system or if they're looking online, that track's always going to be there. It's always going to like show up. So I think that like there's a lot of longevity with your music, and the term that you're signing with basically with your song can live in that library forever. So it's really depends on how long the library wants it in there. I know usually with the music library I work for, they haven't really deleted too many tracks from what I've seen. They maybe a handful, but not too many.
Do like the producers who put their or do register their songs like on these libraries, do they ever come through and kind of clean out the tracks on their own?
You could. I never really seen too much of that, but you could, depending on the agreement you have, they just have to agree to it. Like, hey, I want to take this track out. But if it's not used, that's usually more the opportunity you get to take it out. If it is used, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you're already binded to an exclusive contract if you sign exclusive. If it's non-exclusive, you don't really have to worry about that. You can just tell them, hey, I want to take this track out, or I don't want to use this track anymore with that non-exclusive library.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your agreement.
Is that something like that producers even worry about, or is it kind of like the more the merrier?
No, it's not really something that usually producers specifically don't worry about, just because your stuff that you're releasing as an artist or for artists and stuff like that is going to be a little bit different than TV and sync. It's going to have a different feel, different arrangement to it. So I don't really see too much of that where producers are trying to like get out old beats and stuff.
For sure. Then we got another one from Dollar on the Beat. He said, when submitting through email to libraries for the first time, what do I need already set on the back end? Like, what would be expected of me?
That's a good question. So I definitely recommend signing up with the PRO first. The first thing you need to do, sign up with the Performing Rights Organization. Like I mentioned earlier, you can sign up with BMI or ASCAP, or if you're international, you're out of the country, you can just type in Performing Rights Organization, the name of your country. After that, you want to get your music prepared. I only like to send like 3 to 5 tracks. 3 to 5 tracks, I put in a link. I don't use SoundCloud because SoundCloud could be distracting. You can see different tracks on SoundCloud if they have like other playlists on their SoundCloud or whatever, or every 2 tracks. After every 2 tracks, there's an ad. So I don't recommend SoundCloud. There's a lot of distractions. I like to use something like Dropbox or Box because it's only your music, only your folders. I also sometimes talk about Disco. If you know me, you hear me talk about Disco. I'm not affiliated with them whatsoever, but it's becoming a little bit more industry standard, more specifically for sync licensing. But it is you do have to pay to use it, like $9.99 a month or something. But it's cool because you can like see when they actually open your track and stuff. But I would have my music ready, prepared, 3 to 5 tracks, showcasing my best style of beats. You want to make sure it's not like laid back and lazy and like lacks energy. You want to make sure it's like really showcasing your strengths. If you're first trying to get accepted, it doesn't need to be anything specifically made for sync or TV shows, though it does help you if you know the format and the structure, like adding a sting and stuff like that. But just make sure that you're sending stuff that really showcases your talent and really can fit within their library that they actually need. Make sure you don't have like tons of tracks just in your style already. And then after from there, that's how you're going to start getting ready to pitch by researching these music libraries, looking on their website, see their criteria, see their submission form. They're going to tell you sometimes the exact guidelines they need, and you need to follow those guidelines. It's pretty simple, like what type of streaming link to use, adding your PRO, adding your name, just very simple, basic information. So that's the process that you're really going to be starting off and expecting when you're working with them. Just make sure you know what a sting is, some of the basics. There's tons of sync information now, I feel like, on there. Like we share information within our community already with what I'm doing. There's other communities out there that share the process too as well. Just be prepared, and that's pretty much the process of getting started.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we got a couple questions left before we're gonna go ahead and end it. So if anybody else has any last minute questions for Excalibur Zero, go ahead and drop it down below. Right now we got one from Revision. He says, does a place track get registered to the PRO before it airs?
There's a place track registered to the PRO before it airs. Usually, if you're working with the music library, they register it for you. They'll usually register that track before it airs for you. They have all the tracks that you submit to them. They'll put it directly registered on that website, that Performing Rights Organization. If you're working directly with a music supervisor or a sync agency, usually you want to register yourself. But when that track's used, it's going to show up, like I said. Basically, imagine FL Studio having video on it, and then you have different, or Adobe Premiere, whatever you use, video on it and the music on there. Every single track that's on there, you can use like go to file, then export, and export this little sheet. And this sheet is going to have all the music that's used on there. That sheet has to be processed and sent out with the correct information of each producer, each composer, each individual who used that track. And that's already processed and done for you. That's what a music library takes care of. They enter in all that information for you. It's called Q sheets. They do that and they submit that information. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's just like the back end stuff that music libraries usually take care of for you, or even sometimes sync agencies. So long story short, no, you don't need to register it before you send it out or when it airs.
Okay. All right, cool. And then we got another one here from Yimwave. Is getting placements for video games a similar process to getting ones with ads, movies, shows, etc.?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, you just need to make sure that you're working with the right library that actually works on those type of projects. You can see sometimes they'll list their credits on their actual website. I know a website that does use video games specifically. They do video game stuff. Is APM. And there's a homie on Instagram too. His name is like DIY Music Biz. He also shares a lot of his process of how he submits to video games. One of the gems that he shared before is that he'll go to like Apple Store or whatever. He'll see the support email that's on the actual game. Let's say a mobile game or something. He'll look for their email and he'll reach out saying like who's the best person to contact for music submissions for their projects. Also working with like indie game developers, they may have a small budget, but that's like $500,000 that you can work with to get started. It may be a little bit harder when you're working with like bigger game developers, but that's a couple of ways that I've learned so far that you can start submitting. I personally never have gotten a video game placement outside of like doing stuff for like Fortnite, but that's the process that I've learned so far.
Still, for one single video game placement, Fortnite is a pretty good one to have.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah. We don't have any other questions right now. So if anybody has anything that they want to drop while I ask you something, I wanted to know, we kind of touched on this before. You said to avoid like using royalty-free loops when it comes to like making music for sync. What about like just collaboration in general? Like, do you have any kind of guidelines to follow for producers who want to collaborate on stuff like this?
That's a really good question. So it depends really on the library. There's some libraries that don't care who you work with. You just have to agree to split the track between you. Then, like whatever your agreed percentage, let's say your agreed percentage is 75%. You need to make sure you're splitting that 75% with that person on your own terms. They don't really want anything to do with it. There's other libraries like the one I work with that requires you to like sign an agreement with that producer. So that producer, if he's going to be sending you loops to collab on, just make sure that agreement is also set with that producer. They'll sign like a little contract or whatever, and then that way you can work together to submit out. I've seen both ways. Jingle Punks is like a really big music library. They're known for more working in that style where you could just work out that agreement on the back end with your producer homies or whatever, collabing between yourselves. Just make sure you're not using any like samples or anything like that. Everything needs to be cleared and made between you and that person.
All right, for sure. Yeah, I know, like, because when you think about it, like splice samples and stuff should, in theory, like be good for this kind of stuff, but like in the real world, like we obviously do have a lot of that content ID problems. Like obviously producers posting type beats. So I can imagine when working with these sync companies, like they don't want to deal with any kind of holdup like that. So
For sure.
it's just good to kind of avoid any kind of royalty-free stock kind of music and just do things from scratch pretty much, right?
For the most part, for more specifically for like melodic elements, if it's like a percussion loop or a drum loop, you don't have to really worry about it because it's not going to really show up. But melodic elements, more specifically, they are cracking down. I have used melodic loops from like Splice and stuff before, but now that we're getting more seasoned within Splice and people are starting to see it, it has been causing trouble for like production companies and stuff who are working on these projects. So they just don't want to see anything flagged. It just worries them when they see like content ID show up for a track that they have on their show, just because somebody else uses the same splice loop. So they'd just rather not deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good thing to keep in mind. But yeah, it looks like we got all the questions we got answered. So I will go ahead and leave it at that. I really appreciate you for coming on and taking the time out your day to come talk to us on everything here, bro. Thank you.
100%, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are building. I feel like we're both trying to provide resources for people to create their own lane or, make a career out of this. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing too as well. And thanks for having me on here. And shout out to everybody who came through. Appreciate all the questions and stuff like that. And anybody who came through my live stream, I appreciate you too as well.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming in and giving all your questions and everything. Is there anything you want to shout out before we get going?
If you're looking for more information about Sync, man, I'm definitely here to help. I understand what it's like to be like just looking for the answer to really get to where you want to be. I try to provide as much resources free as possible as well. My content on Instagram, YouTube, whatever is made to help you. I'm trying to give out the blueprint. And I also do live streams every Friday at 10 a.m. PDT, so West Coast time, where you can come in, you can send your music in the Discord community. I'll review it, and I'll tell you why not it may fit for TV. I give my experience. I tell you, this track doesn't fit because of this reason, or this track is really good because it fits this style. And I really look to help anybody out there who's trying to get it. There's a lot of people who came through the stream today I see already who are in the comments that came from my stream, and they do the same thing, and they kill it. So if you're looking to be a part of that movement, you're looking for help along the journey for your first sync placement, that's my goal.
For sure. And we got your social media links in the description. So everybody make sure you go follow him, join his Discord server, go check out the live streams. We also have the Discord server for the Heat server down below as well. So go ahead and get connected with everybody as well. But yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, bro. This was a good talking to you. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
All
Peace
right,
out,
man.
everybody.
Appreciate you guys. Peace.